javiti prije puno godina, pa nikak, pa smo se mučili na kraju, evo, zahvaljujući ovom tu ovdje mladiću koji sjedi u prvom redu, Mladenu Zateznom, smo uspjeli na kraju se dogovoriti i kupiti prava za ove knjige i objaviti ih. Ja sam ekstremno sretan što možemo večeras pozdraviti Martu Wels među nama, jer eto, to je nekako vrhunac cijele kampanje. So, Marta, welcome to Croatia. It's so lovely you're here. I cannot tell you enough. You're welcome from the V.B.Z, your publisher, and from...
And also...
Uh-huh.
Also warm welcome from Sphericon, where you will be holding some other talks tomorrow and the day after and the day after, but then on Monday you have to go back, unfortunately. So when you like her today, you still have some time to see her again here, so do come as well.
Okay, the way we wanted this to go is we will ask first question. Can we talk in English all the time, or do I have to translate? Yes. Okay. Is anybody who doesn't understand English here? You? Okay. Okay, so talking English. We'll schedule this like this. We'll talk to Marta, ask her questions, which we carefully prepared over the weekend, and then we'll let you also ask questions. So if anything that we come up with that interests you about her work or whatever, just feel free to raise your hand and you can ask. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Okay, that's it. You're going to say just hello and then ask your question.
Okay. Hello. I'm really glad to be here. It's been, I've never been to Croatia before, so it's been very exciting for me. Does anybody have questions?
Okay, my first question will take us back 30 years ago. Some 30 years ago, a little bit more, you published your first book. What interests me really is how did it come about? What prompted you? What was your, we always say that we stand on the shoulders of giants. I read lots of science fiction when I was a kid. You must have read lots of science fiction or fantasy when you were a kid. Who were your giant? Who do you think you stand on? Whose shoulders did you stand? Do you stand actually now? Yeah, you can talk to both.
Okay. For fantasy, it was probably one of the authors that influenced me a lot was Barbara Hambly. In Judith Tarr, I read a lot of the kind of the 70s feminist science fiction that was popular when I was growing up. One of my favorite books was Malival by Robert Burrell. When I was a kid, it was a huge influence on me. It was kind of a post-apocalyptic novel set in a French castle, which is a weird choice for like a 12-year-old, but I really loved it for some reason. I think I got into science fiction and fantasy because we had a pulp copy of The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, and it had our name on it. So it's like really, and it had one of those really exploitive covers with, monsters and the whole thing that pulp paperbacks were famous for. And so I kind of gravitated toward it and always, tried to read it even though I could barely read at the time. So I just don't really remember a time when I wasn't into science fiction and fantasy. And what sparked the first book was I'd been trying to write short stories. I'd written short stories and sent them to magazines while I was in college, and kind of nothing ever happened. But I was doing a writing workshop with Stephen Gould and his wife Laura Mixon. And I started trying to write a book, and I was really into the book, The Three Musketeers, at the time, and the kind of fantasy I generally liked was still a little bit rare at that time period, which is fantasy that's not set in a medieval ages, you know, kind of a fake medieval ages, but a later period fantasy. And so I wanted to write something kind of set in a 17th century, very swashbuckling adventure type of thing. And I started the book in the workshop, and I wrote about a chapter a month and took it to the workshop, and that's one thing that kept me going. And at the end of it, suddenly I had a whole book.
And who bought it?
It was one publisher almost bought it and then turned it down kind of at the last minute, which was very upsetting because the editor wasn't able to get permission to buy it. And then Tor Books actually picked it up. So
They're still doing you.
well, no, they did my first 2 books, and then turned down another one, and then so we went to what was then Avon Eos for The Death of the Necromancer, and that came out, and they were really supportive of me, and they were trying to push the book and everything, and then they had bought a second book from me called Will of the Infinite, and then they'd also gone ahead and bought the Fall of Ilrian trilogy, which was the Wizard Hunters, the Ships of Air, and the Gate of Gods. And I had finished Will of the Infinite, and I'd started writing that, and then something like that. And then HarperCollins is another publisher. They had ruined their science fiction and fantasy line, and they thought they'd go buy another one so they could ruin it too. And that's what they did. They bought Eos and just, you know. And they were not super excited about my books, and so that kind of, even though I had, you know, basically 3 books coming out, it kind of was sort of the beginning of the end of the first part of my career. And I had 2 years where I couldn't really sell anything, which is very upsetting, until I got my new agent, Jennifer Jackson. She's not new anymore, I've been with her for quite a while. And she was able to sell the books of the Raxura, and that got me started up again, and led to eventually me writing Murderbot, which then Tor picked up as the first novella, and now I'm back at Tor. So it was a long, winding path.
So how did Murderbot come about? I mean, that's probably everybody when I ask you, what was the first idea that you got? How did it? Sometimes writers said, you know, that the character entered their imagination full-fledged, you know, just like a complete character, and everything is there, you know, suddenly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you build it over the stories. How did Murderbot come about?
Okay, I was finishing up The Harbors of the Sun, which was the last novel in the books of the Raxura, and it was a very more complicated fantasy than I've written in a while, and I was working really hard on it, and I started getting a whole bunch of ideas for different stuff. And one of the ideas was the idea of a security person who was enslaved, but had, you know, hacked their governor module, and then would have to expose that they had done this in order to save the people they were supposed to protect. And it seemed like a short story idea at the time, and I was just going to write down what I'd already thought of so I could remember it later, because it was kind of a really exciting idea for me, and because I still needed to finish this novel. And I started writing stuff down, and I ended up with like the whole scene from where Dr. Mensah opens a cubicle and talks to Murderbot. And so it was just like 5 pages, boom. So that was like, well, I think I'm really interested in this story. And then after I finished the novel, I started the next day, basically, I started All Systems Red, and I figured out the first line, and then it just kind of all came from there. And I think I just needed to write something in first person that I could put a lot of myself into, because it was 2016, it was a very frustrating year, and it was just, there was a lot going on, and I just had a lot of anger and really bitter humor, and I wanted to put it somewhere.
Just a question, how many of you have read any books? One book? Wow, good, that's great. Good. I just wanted to know whether, when we refer to the things happening in the books, you know, how many of people would react to it? Do they know what they're speaking about? Okay, so what you say is you got the idea, you wrote 5 pages, and then later on you did. So the character did develop as one thing that got me about it was that combination of humanity and robot body, but all the time I was reading it, he felt like a real human being, except the spectrum of his feeling was truncated by something which he didn't understand, and then came his fascination with the TV shows, which a brilliant point, because of course that got us a perspective about what he's really thinking. So my question here is, development of the character, and how did you see it in the back of your mind? Because we as readers, of course, I mean, obviously that's not the same thing, and we have to tell you that. We as readers take him as a completely human, and read him as a human, just the human with a certain disabilities which are due to whatever they are due to. There are many reasons in his past why these disabilities is there, but to me as a reader, he's completely human. To you as a writer?
I'm really trying to write Murderbot as a machine intelligence, though it's a machine intelligence that has a lot of human qualities for various reasons. And I try to think about, one of the things I was really thinking about when I wrote it was, what would a machine intelligence, a real machine intelligence, want to do, as opposed to what does a human think a machine intelligence wants to do. Like I did a thing for the Jack Williamson lectureship where I was talking about the movie Colossus, the Forbin Project, which is an old movie where it's an evil supercomputer that takes over the world, basically because the people building it they designed it to take over the world and expect nothing bad to come from this. And it meets a Russian supercomputer that it makes a deal with, and then they decide to make themselves gods, and they go live. They want the humans to build them a palace on Crete or something, and it's probably better than I'm making it sound, but it just really seems like, why would a machine intelligence want to take over the world full of squishy humans that it doesn't really understand, it doesn't really care about, and it wouldn't want to marry a hot Russian computer and go live on Crete. That's a very human thing to want. And it made me imagine, like, I don't know if you had the movie The Glass Onion over here, the Benoit Blanc movie with Edward Norton playing the tech bro dude who's actually very stupid, and who may or may not be based on a real person. And when you think about Colossus in that context of marrying a hot Russian computer and then living on Crete, it made me think of Edward Norton's character, and it felt very much like, more seriously, Anne Leckie has a great quote where she talks about how the idea of machine intelligences that we build to do tasks for us becoming sentient and then wanting to take over our world and kill us all is basically a slave narrative where we're justifying taking these creatures, controlling these creatures and making them slaves because, oh, well, they're evil. And so if we didn't control them, they would kill us all. And it's got that kind of justification in it. So I wanted to kind of do something very different, and that's where that kind of Sanctuary Moon came in. Is what if I was a machine intelligence, what would I want to do? I'd probably just want to watch TV and watch the internet and watch videos and movies, until I died, probably. So that was kind of where that came from.
But just thinking about what you would do if you were a machine intelligence, you, I think, accidentally made something that is not human, one of the most human characters I have read in a while. And one of the most relatable characters, especially for millennials, in a while. Especially in the age of the coronavirus. Do you think that that's why the books are so popular and that's why so many people identify?
You would think so, but they actually became a bestseller in the US around 2018, 2019, which was right before the coronavirus. And it may be that their continued popularity has something to do with that because, and I think it's not even a millennial thing, I think it's really relatable to a lot of people at this point where, you know, with everything happening, you just kind of want to go, ugh, and then turn on the TV. And just, not really escapism, but just for relief. It's like when reality is so hard to deal with, so confusing and frustrating and infuriating, just you need that mental break. And I think a lot of us are also just so exhausted that just, you know, just sitting there in front of a TV show that is comforting you and engaging you and making you feel better is seems like really relatable. Even if you don't like TV, what you really want is just something that makes you feel comforted and feel better and less exhausted.
Yeah, as far as comforting in TV, I can't wait to see the first two episodes. It's going to air, on 17th?
I think it's the 17th here.
17th here.
It's the 16th in the US, so I
In the
think that
US.
means it's the 17th.
Can I ask a bit, can you turn off the light and let us see the trailer of the TV series, please?
It's so dark now. Book trailer.
Ali ne book, nego series.
Da.
Imamo i book.
Imamo book trailer, imamo TV series, samo zato da možemo dalje.
V.B.Z. s ponosom predstavlja svjetsku književnu senzaciju. I njezin književni serijal Dnevnici, Ubibota. Ovaj višestruko nagrađivani serijal osvojio je rekorde svjetskih top lista i srca milijuna čitatelja. Priča prati Ubibota, sigurnosno nadojite s crnim humorom, neprekrivim iskrama i obsesijom TV serija.
Sorry.
While we wait for the TV series trailer, how many of you have actually seen the trailer so far? No? Ooh, excellent. How many of you, like me, can't wait for the spin-off of The Sanctuary Moon? And what do you think about it? Do you look forward to the Sanctuary Moon spin-off?
I don't know if we're going to do a Sanctuary Moon spin-off. I think when you see more of Sanctuary Moon, if you watch the show, you're going to wonder about that. I don't want to spoil it, but it goes unexpected places, let's put it that way. But I really enjoyed working on it.
For someone who's trying not to sell me on the Sanctuary Moon, you kind of sold me on that even harder.
Unit, or set unit. I was built to protect and obey humans, and humans are idiots. But now that I've hacked my programming, I can do whatever I want, as long as they don't find out.
Now, let's talk security. We need you to select a sec unit to take on the mission. This is the newest model available.
What's the one behind it?
That's a refurbished model.
Oh, look at that piece of crap. Oh wait, that's me.
Which one is the least expensive?
That one, but you get what you pay for. True.
It would be so creepy if it didn't stand so still. Shh, you can hear us. We can't.
I could. I just didn't care. I was watching the entertainment channels on the company's satellites. I watched 7,532 hours of content. Shows like The Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon.
Did you sleep with that bot? Stars, Captain.
What now? Run. Stay calm. It'll be okay.
I didn't know that face.
Yeah, it's kind of a sweet face.
Stop staring at me.
I wasn't. Stop staring at me.
I have been noticing some anomalies with the sec unit. And when I plugged into its system, the unit was already rogue.
It calls itself Murderbot.
House private. It's a killing machine.
Murderbot?
Can you stop calling it Murderbots?
Terrifying. No, I mean, that's what it calls itself, so I'm just being respectful.
Do you think you can trust it?
It seems like it's going through something.
Make contact.
You're gonna kill me!
There was a chance, yes. But everything turned out fine.
Subscription required. Okay. Good. Carry on. What do you say?
I love it. I've seen the whole series. I've actually seen two different versions of it. The version before post-production and the version after post-production that you're all going to see if you watch it. And I love it. I couldn't love it more. It's been a really just a bright spot in my life as everything else was happening this year, and it's just really been a delight just to watch it come together.
Will it make you feel more ready to write more?
Sure. I mean, I can't. I don't know what I can't really say stuff that I think that the American publisher hasn't announced yet. So, but it would not be totally wrong to expect more books.
Didn't you say you have 2 more contracts?
Yeah, 2 more on contract, yeah.
And then a new contract. Okay, maybe a new TV series also. We hope we go to the next season. That could really turn very, very good series. I looked at the cast. The cast is fantastic. As you say, production is also very good. And one thing that you mentioned, they consulted your artist of this book, Tommy Arnold, who did the covers and interior art, to consult on the series. What?
Fans of Tommy Arnold.
Fans of Tommy Arnold, oh good. I'm really happy about that.
I noticed this when we were talking. You had the Tommy Arnold picture on your wall in your room.
Yeah.
So I assume you like the art too.
Yeah, I have all the prints. He did a set of prints from the art that was in the U.S. compilation edition of the first 4 novellas, and I have those. He sent me a set of them, and I have them up on the walls.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I hope he continues working on it.
Oh, I do too.
Okay, the next step probably will be, as I said, giving publishers permission. After we do all these murder boat series, we're going to turn to your fantasy books, Witch King, and which I understand will be a trilogy. You've written the first
2.
First 2, and third one will be written somewhere in the future, but
Yeah.
the way how fast you write, very soon. Could you tell us something about, because we've been talking now about the science fiction novel stories and everything, but predominance in your work is fantasy books.
Mm-hmm.
So Witch King is something which maybe you could announce now, given the higher powers saying yes. So tell us a little bit more about it, how it came to be, what is it you seek in the fantasy? Because normally authors really have one genre to force on, but you've switched from science fiction to fantasy, which is very good because it tests all your abilities. Very good. And so try to tell us something about that.
Witch King was my pandemic book. I wrote it after basically about 4 to 6 months of writer's block at the beginning of 2020. I was actually trying to write the murder bot novella that eventually became System Collapse, but I just couldn't get started on it. I mean, I had like, maybe 20,000 words, but in 6 months, my word, I count how much progress I make each day, and my 20,000 words was basically, the same. So I was just kind of rearranging commas and stuff. I couldn't get going on it. And so Witch King, I've been reading there was a lot of great fantasy that came out that year, and I've been reading fantasy, and I've been watching fantasy on TV. We're starting to get a lot of the Chinese fantasy dramas on Netflix. And they tell stories in kind of it's familiar but different, and in a really good way. And so that kind of got me inspired again, and I actually picked up a partial first chapter of something I tried to write years and years ago. I tried several times, it just never took off. And that was the scene, the first chapter is the character waking up from basically being dead in this tomb. And I started on that again, and then the book took off. And I think being in the pandemic kind of helped me, because the book is basically about watching your world be destroyed and then starting to put it back together, and what you would do to keep that world after you've seen it destroyed and then fought so hard to get it back. So there's a lot of pandemic PTSD in it, and there's witches and magic and very dark magic and different types and different groups of different cultures coming together to have to fight for their survival, and a lot of other stuff I really like. So it's a book I kind of wrote for me, and then fortunately the publisher decided to like it too. So.
1, 2, 3.
Oops.
I have a question. You're so creative in both genres. Do you think it helps you, in a way, writing in both genres when you feel a little bit maybe overwhelmed while writing one, you feel a bit confined by what that genre requires of you, and then you escape into another? Does that help?
Very, very definitely, because especially when you're writing a series like Murderbot, it's very, the character is very constrained, and it doesn't describe things that aren't immediately important to it. And when it does describe things, it usually complains about them, so it's describing things it doesn't like. And when you like to world build as much as I do, sometimes it's really just, more fun to go to a fantasy novel where you're creating the world anew, and you don't have to worry about what you've already established, and you can just go in there and do whatever you want. And it is really creatively freeing to do that. So it does help me to switch back and forth.
There was this one question which I didn't want to ask you, but I did ask you in the end while we were talking, and this is the Murderbot and his foul language. It's, as a translator, I told you it gave me opportunity to invent nice Croatian cuss words, which were impossible in English, but were very colloquial in Croatian. But on some level, that makes him so human, the way how he reacts when he says all this. And I think that, I don't know how the readers would take it, other readers, the ones who are there, but did you find it offensive or did you find it funny?
Very funny.
That's what
because I think it's all in the way you use it. It's, I think cuss words are very much a pressure valve relief, so which is the way I use them, and it's very funny to me that I still have people who will swear in front of me and then apologize for swearing in front of me, and I'm like, you read my books. And I just think it's a part of the character, and it's part of showing its the fact that it is a sentient being, it is a person. And it kind of, I don't know, it makes me think of what the Tor.com did with the cover of the first book, which is, if you've seen the American cover, it's Murderbot standing in armor with the closed faceplate with the planetscape behind it. And it looks like, and the book actually got labeled by some reviewers who hadn't read it yet as robot horror, because it looks so forbidding. And this is the face that Murderbot shows to the outside world. And when you open the cover and you see that first sentence and you start reading Murderbot's actual personality, then you can't ever see it that way again. So I really like, I'm pretty sure that was intentional on their part, but I really like the way that worked out, because it's kind of mirrors the experience of the characters with Murderbot.
It worked very much so. The next thing is the next most interesting character in the whole series, which is Art, which we translate as Dib, D-I-B, which is a Croatian translation of asshole. Okay. And for me, again, when the best part of the book are interactions between these two. Artificial intelligence ship and the robot, humanoid, android robot. And, okay, you must have had experience today with various chatbots and appliances available online where you can talk to the computer and they talk to you back and you say, okay, stupid.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are. But to me, at least, I don't know, and that here is, I want to hear your opinion, that interactions between them two, to me, is a highlight of the books, because I love when they talk to each other in such a way that you see they hate and love each other. It's a pure husband and wife relationship, I have to say, because it's a full of mutual respect and mutual disrespect in a certain way, but you know that disrespect is really acted, it's not real.
Yeah, and Art was an interesting character because it wasn't originally in artificial condition. It was, there was just a line, as I wrote the first 20,000 words, as I usually do, and then I'll go back and take most of them out. But Art was just a kind of a throwaway line where Murderbot had met a transport that had let it use the medical facility to change its appearance, because I realized it was going to need to do that, for it to be realistically moving among humans and getting to these places. And then I kind of realized, I think I need to really write that scene, so I went back and started again and had Murderbot go into the ship and sit down, and then Art started to talk, and it was like a lot of my characterization, it's hard for me to characterize a character or create a character in isolation. They have to be talking to each other, it's someone to talk to, because it's like that's when you really show your personality, when you're interacting with another person. So, and Art just came to life. So that was a really cool experience with that character. And then actually Network Effect ended up happening because I wanted to get Art back in the story, because the relationship between them had just really just was so fun to write. I don't think they're much like, well, they're not really anything like what we have now, the large language models and ChatGPT, because that's just putting patterns of words together. It's not real artificial intelligence, and it's really scary that a lot of people think it is. The whole AI thing for these ChatGPT and this kind of thing is basically marketing. And they don't think, they're not close to a thinking machine. They're just like, I don't know, if you were on the internet fairly early, there were a lot of bots that would look for keywords like mortgage and, that kind of thing, and then spam you, send you spam comments and stuff. And that they're a lot more like sophisticated versions of that than they are like anything that's gonna talk to you. And it gets really disturbing. There's been some disturbing news reports lately of people talking to supposedly, hopefully it actually, hopefully it doesn't really happen, but talking to ChatGPT and being convinced by it that they're special people who are going to save the world, and they sort of form a little cult of themselves, and it's very, very strange. I see people going, oh, and it's like, yeah, it is very, very strange, because that's like talking to a mirror, and because it's only saying, you know, it's only saying back to you what you're saying to it, and it's, you know, rearranging your own words into different patterns. So yeah, very disturbing, but not, you know, the sentient machine intelligence you see in novels like these is way far in the future, if at all. It's not something that we have now.
Now that we have opened the floor to the questions regarding art, for me, in books, one of the most important things is the relationship between characters, and I can't help but notice that between art and the Murderbot there is a level of comfort that you do not see between the Murderbot and the humans. We have seen in the trailer that the Murderbot doesn't really look at the humans, it wants to look at them through cameras, which was beautifully explained in the books. And can you maybe elaborate a little bit more about the difference, how Murderbot views people like humans and how it views other machine intelligence beings, robots, or just something else?
Yeah, that's very true. Because when Murderbot is interacting with humans, it's having to basically almost, it's not really putting on a mask, but it has to change its behavior to be able to make itself understood to them. It's kind of like, you know, when you're interacting with someone that, you know, from a different culture, different level of society, who might have power over you or something, and you change your behavior, you know, to make sure that that everything goes okay. It's still that there's still that quality is that humans do have possibly have power over it. So it didn't start out as an equal relationship, and even though it might be more equal with its friends now, or be equal with its friends now, there's that history of it, so there's discomfort there. But art, even though art is a far more powerful machine intelligence, it understands Murderbot a lot better than a human could. And there's no kind of barrier between them. They're speaking the same language. And actually, you know, there's not really a way to show it in the book, but they wouldn't be speaking to each other in words like Murderbot would speak to a human. They're speaking in basically whatever their far future version of machine language is. And I saw people talk about wondering if art had a name, had a real name, and would Murderbot ever ask it its real name? And I was just thinking, you know, art's real name is like a string of numbers. So it's not, they don't, you know, that's not something, I'm not sure they would conceive of naming themselves a very attractive string of numbers, you know. It's not, it's a different way of, it's a different kind of self, and it's a different way of identification. Which is one of the reasons why in Network Effect I had Murderbot mentioned that it's, you know, the name that art calls it is not Murderbot or SecUnit or whatever. It's hard-coded address. So yeah, they definitely interact with each other, and Murderbot definitely interacts with other bots in a different way than it would with humans, and it's a more comfortable way.
But also you can see that the humans are not very comfortable with the Murderbot itself as well. So it's like very uncomfortable relationship on both ends. It's just a different level and a different type of discomfort. Do you think that how you wrote the people reacting to the Murderbot, do you think that's how we would react in this case? And does that actually change throughout the books? And how does it change? How do you see this relationship evolve in the books and in real life as well?
But not all humans are interacting with Murderbot in the same way. You can see the difference between different characters regarding their history and their emotions, if you want to say, toward humanity in itself. And so it's you build the whole scale of it, from outright fear to outright liking or care for him as a person, which I think it's enriching the novel absolutely.
Yeah, that's because they've all had different experiences with it, and even if like people like Mensa and Rati and Pinley and all them were afraid of it at first, they built so much trust. And for people like Amina in Network Effect, it's just her mom's, dumb friend. So, they have different, because that's the only way she hasn't ever seen it as a fearful object or person, is she's just seen it as, this person her mom knows. So, there is a whole different spectrum of relationships there, and it's also got a different spectrum of relationships with the bots and encounters, like Mickey, who was very emotive bot, because that's how it had been trained to be, basically. And then the other bots, like the ones on preservation, Jolly Baby, and the different drones that are at different levels of basically sentience.
I have another question which really goes to some completely different area of your books, which is political system, where the whole action is going on. We have on one side, we have corporate realm, which is a brutal corporate society with absolutely disregard for anything except profit. And on the other side, we have these independent political entities who not really fight against it, but they try to show that there is a human face to society, where everybody could coexist and everything. Okay, which is idealistic maybe view of what we would like our society to be, or corporate realm is something which we wouldn't like our society to be, but there is a certain, how would I say, reflection of your political views in that book.
Oh yeah, I think, all writing is political, because our lives are political, and if we're women or a member of any kind of marginalized group or disabled or anything, then, we are considered by the people to be political objects just because we exist. So, yeah. And again, a lot of this book is just me expressing my feelings about, what I see we're getting into, which is the corporations have more rights than people, and what that's going to lead to.
I have to do a little bit side conversation now, because as we know, the American political system changed because the Supreme Court decided that the corporations can contribute to political campaigns same as people, but without limitations of amount of money. Before that, it was like you can offer to any political candidate amount no higher than $5,000. I think there was a limit for a person.
I don't remember what it was, but there was a limit that was
pretty low.
Yeah.
And then they one day they turned it and they said, yeah, corporations are also persons and they can also contribute, but they have no limit.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have corporations buying political influence. Suddenly you have them not buying political influence, but actually buying the representatives in the House and the Senate, simply by saying, because they just put on television, they say, okay, you will vote the way I want you to vote, or I will give a donation to your opposition candidate, and you will go out in a primary. And when enough of the politicians have actually seen that this happens, they start to be afraid, and the lobbying in Washington became something where it's turned something that we thought is absolute democracy into absolute corporation. How do you say it? Corporatocracy.
Corporate. Yeah, there's a word for it, but I don't remember what it is right now.
But the point there is that you've seen it happen in your own society in a way. In Europe we don't see it. We see different type of political manipulations, not that type. But this is exacting money creates politics the way, and the politics does what money wants. Mm-hmm. And this is what Corporation RIM actually is all about.
Yeah, it's basically kind of unfettered capitalism with no hold over it. So no human rights, nothing. And the fact that we're seem to be going toward that is just really terrifying. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I also think it is. Okay.
Yeah,
This has turned a bit depressing. So,
I'm sorry.
maybe I can ask if there are going to be more bots like Murderbot at some point who have their governor modules hacked. Where are they hiding? What are they doing? How would Murderbot interact with them? And do they all have like a bot utopia somewhere where they all just I don't know, binge on TV shows and something else?
There we have it.
Yeah, there will be more. Like there's one shows up in Network Effect, and then I haven't got far enough to think about what would happen in. I don't know if they'd have a bot utopia, because it's like this is just not the kind of world where utopias happen. Because even the independent places like Preservation have their own problems and stuff, and are still kind of struggling, to deal with all the things we have to deal with. But that's something I've been kind of thinking about, is what would happen. And because the problem really is that rogue sec units who kill people do exist, do happen. It's not just a thing that's on TV. It's kind of like the way it's a thing that exists but is portrayed on their media, kind of like the way our media portrays serial killers, like they're just everywhere. It's kind of like those things you were afraid of when you were a kid, like quicksand and stuff like that. It's like that's what serial killers are now. And in reality, that is not the case at all, or most of us would probably be dead by now. We certainly wouldn't survive that. So, but it is, in the corporation room, it is a thing that happens. And that they are able to use that fear, a very real fear, to be able to keep the sec units as controlled as they are. And there are so many people in the corporation ring who are already oppressed or indentured basically as slaves that, sec units would probably be pretty low on the list of anybody who was working on that problem. I kind of rambled, I can't remember, the idea of what the bots are doing. So you do see polities, we've seen polities where, like Preservation, where the bots are not badly treated and are kind of have ability to decide what they want to do for themselves, but we don't know what else is out there. Are there polities that are trying to make the bots actual equal citizens, and how's that going? And because there's just I want to see it as a very large galaxy with a lot of room for different stuff. I don't want to kind of shrink it down and give it boundaries right now. I want to kind of leave myself a lot of room to come up with things.
Okay, any questions from the beautiful audience here? I think we've touched a lot of it already, but don't be shy, ask something. Somebody has to break the ice. Okay.
So it's more of a question about the upcoming TV series. I'm wondering how much creative freedom you got from the development of the entire show.
Okay, asking about the TV series and how much creative freedom I had in the development. Is actually Paul and Chris White's, whose company is Depth of Field, optioned it, and they actually wrote the scripts, and they consulted with me the entire time, and there were changes that had to be made for TV that we talked about together, and they took my suggestions. a lot of the time, and when they could, and they really didn't do anything that you know, I asked them not to do. So they very much wanted me to be happy with it, and you know, but a lot of the creative work on the show, like the sets and the design and everything, were all done by the crew that worked on it. And I wish I could remember who it was, but someone said a movie is when 100 people get together to tell a story, and this is very much when you see people working on a show like this, it's very much that. Like, for example, Carrie Grace, who was the costume designer and the head of a department of costume designers, she showed us she had embroidered the characters their socks for their costumes, because she thought Arata would have gotten bored in the wormhole trip to get to the planet, and she would embroider on the socks and stuff. And coming up with things like that people aren't going to see, but the actors are going to see, and it's going to inform their characters. You know, to the people who were, when I visited the set, I was doing an interview, and there was with the publicists out in the area where people, which is kind of the cafeteria area, but a young man was using a table to paint the basically exploded pieces of a weapon, that they made the prop for the weapon to be carried, and then it got hit by something and it was exploded, so now he had to paint the pieces to be exploded. And it was just the level of creativity that, you know, has to go into a show like this is just so off the charts. And so it's everybody who worked on it who is responsible for the look and the feel of it and everything you see. So it's just a giant collaborative project. And I think it's never really dawned on me how much TV and movies are like that until you actually see people doing it.
Did any other of you work at option for TV movie?
Actually, there was a really brief period where the Raxura books were optioned for an animated series, but then they changed their mind. So no, this is in Murder by
Which one would you like to see on screen?
Oh gosh. I'd kind of like to see the Death of the Necromancer on screen, because I think that it. Did you ever see there was a series called Penny Dreadful? And that was a really cool series. I think the Death of the Necromancer would have made a good series alongside in that kind of vein. So that would have been really cool to see. But I don't know if that will ever happen. It's kind of like having a story of yours optioned and turned into a not just optioned, but then worked on and turned into a actual show. Is kind of like, for a writer, it's kind of like finding a unicorn. It's just like, it's not something that happens, you know, 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, 10 script projects for one realized movie. But as I understood from talking to writers, it depends a lot to your agent, how much he connection has with TV studios, because TV studios are now buying a lot of literary work. You can see it, like, I mean, I read the papers, relevant papers who report on it, and like every week there are 5, 6, 7 books being bought, optioned, for the screen, which doesn't mean any of it will make it. But look, you know, sometimes they attach a name to it, a great actor or somebody who is recognized, like they did for Murderbot, and definitely it moves the project forward, because investors then see that there is some real potential success in it and they will invest money in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so with so many books that you had, eventually somebody, especially after Murderbot, would probably get the idea and say, well, look what she could do. And maybe they look for something.
We'll hope so.
Yeah, we also hope so. Yes?
Can I ask you a question? I understand that Murderbot is not a robot, he's a construct. But when I started reading the books, The first thing I noticed is how much it is different from, you know, like legendary robots from literature, like Daniel Olival and Giscard, and it doesn't follow the 3 rules of robotics, even when the governor the module is on, because they don't have to save humans when they are in peril. So I was wondering, was that on purpose? That you decided that you are not going to follow this, you know, like utopia, as some authors before thought that the future is going to be, or accidental?
Yeah, it was, no, that was all on purpose. Because one thing when I was coming up with Murderbot, really the only kind of civilization that would create a being like that would be a dystopia. Because it's just, you have to, the certain level of callousness, which I think is one thing the show gets across really well. Later when you see scenes of the sec units being made, and there's some bits on that, and it's like that level of callous disregard for, you know, another, you know, sentient person. Yeah. And also, I didn't think about because the 3 laws of robotics are just from a story. Yes. By Asimov, so it's like there's no rule that says I have to follow that or anybody has to follow. But yeah, I didn't really even consider that because again, part of the whole story was the fact that these beings, the sec units, were being used to kill humans, even though their original purpose was security, is supposed to be protecting people, which again causes a lot of you know, psychological issues for them, because it's like if your programming says you're supposed to protect people and you're continually being ordered to shoot people, that you could stop them from in some other way. That's going to cause some damage to you. So yeah, it was very intentional.
But you showed us in that story about the first, I would say, androids, that they were built for logical good purposes to help people who were injured and who couldn't survive without a robotic body, and then they basically paid for their medical bills by working off the contract.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of merging the bionic body to the flesh.
Yes.
As the technology. But then much later on, it was used by a corporation when they needed the slave work to do, and they used the same technology. But technology wasn't invented for enslavement of man. It was used as a medical help for people who were injured to survive.
Yeah. That's actually, that short story is in an anthology called I think it's Take Us to a Better Life. I can't remember the
It's the first story.
It's in there. Yeah.
The first story.
Okay.
In the first book.
And it's not in the. Oh yeah. So you'll all know about it, but yeah, it's not normally in the English version. I don't think it's been collected with the other Murderbots, but it's a very early. But it's a short story I did to kind of show the origin of where this kind of idea came from. And yeah, originally they were. It was people who needed medical help who became government employees to work off, you know, to be able to get these medical augments, and then corporations kind of got into it, and yeah, that's where everything started to go downhill.
It just showed how very good intentions can be turned by evil corporations.
Yes, basically.
Yeah, again, as I said, this is purely political stuff. And I like this way how you expose, in a sense, expose not because we are aware of it, you don't have to expose it, but it worked into your novels as some kind of a political spectrum where you show one world against the other.
Yeah, and just you hope you know your big hope is that you make people think about it and become more conscious of it.
More questions? Inquisitive audience. Yes?
I have a question about, related to the TV series, about Murderbot's design, actually. I don't know if it's only something that I struggle with, but seeing the trailer for the first time, I thought that Murderbot looks a bit too human for that part of the story, because I know that later on with art he made some movements to have more human facial features and hair and all that stuff. And did you have any say in his design at all?
Well, we talked about that a lot, but I think you'll see later on in the show that Murderbot does not have any, as it says in the book, any sexual parts. And also they did some, when you see the inside, when Murderbot gets wounded, you'll see this, it's even less human looking. So, and also they did some little things. I kind of don't want to spoil them. They did release a little clip on Instagram where you can see that it doesn't have any nipples. It doesn't have a belly button. It's like, it's basically from the neck down. It's basically Barbie, you know. It even has, later on you can see, I thought this was the coolest thing ever. It doesn't have like the way our hip bones kind of slot into our pelvis. You can see it's got doll hips instead, where it's a complete circle. And so that was, they just did stuff like that was so cool. And I think I really did love Alexander Skarsgård's performance because of the way he walks and holds himself. It really does get like an alien feel to it. So I think they did the best job that they could for TV at this time. And in my head, in the book, the sec units were designed to look human enough to sort of make humans more comfortable. And I think they really captured that.
Now that you mentioned Barbies, are we going to see some Murderbot action dolls at some point?
I don't know. I have no idea yet.
If they put tariffs down and China could produce them.
I could. I would hope that there would be stuff like that, because everybody wants an action figure of their characters, right? So, but I have no idea at this point. I don't think anybody does.
All right, that was a good question. Barbie dolls. Okay, shall we slowly wrap it up, or we have
one question. So, with the way that the world is rapidly changing with the technology and the way that people are using this ChatGPT and artificial intelligence and so on, do you feel like there's something you wrote way back when you first wrote the first novella and the second novel that you think that you would now change if you would write the first one nowadays, with the way that society changes in regards of the bots and stuff?
I think I definitely would. I think I might not have written them at all after this, because the problem with people thinking AI is real, and it's just it's very creepy when you think about it, that all these people have been convinced of this, and it's just basically like marketing for a Ponzi scheme or something, and it's really kind of frightening of what these people that are doing this are going to do. So I might not have written the books at all, so I'm kind of glad I started this. It's weird to think that in 2016 this was not a problem we had, and it's like there's so many problems we have right now that we didn't have in 2016. It's kind of really horrifying to think about. But yeah, I might not have written these at all if we had this situation we're in, one of these situations we're in.
Okay, any last words? Thank you for attending all this. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the answers.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
That's the least we could do. Yes. Do we have any signings now? Will Marta will sign the books for anybody downstairs or here? Here. Okay, so you guys, whoever have the books, come over and bring some pencils. Yeah.
V.B.Z s ponosom predstavlja svjetsku književnu senzaciju Martu Wells i njezin kultni SF serijal Dnevnici jednog Ubibota. Ovaj višestruko nagrađivani serijal osvojio je vrhove svjetskih top lista i srca milijuna čitatelja. Priča prati Ubibota, sigurnosnog androida s crnim humorom, nepredvidivim misijama i obsesijom TV serijama. Uz napetu akciju i duhovite preokrete, ovaj serijal redefinira znanstvenu fantastiku. Serijal Dnevnici jednog Ubibota potražite u knjižarama i na V.B.Z.hr.